The movie kicks off with Gary, a tow truck driver, heading to Maddie's house on a mission he's likely not thrilled about, repossessing her car because she hasn't paid her taxes. For Maddie, the stakes couldn't be higher. Her car is her lifeline, the only way she can continue working as an Uber driver and scraping together a living. Panic sets in as she sees Gary pulling up, and she rushes outside, determined to stop him by any means necessary. Her first approach is to reason with him, practically begging him to reconsider. Maddie passionately explains how losing the car would mean losing her ability to work, and without work, she has no way of resolving her financial troubles. When that doesn't seem to soften Gary, she shifts tactics, appealing to their personal history. She reminds him of the romantic relationship they once shared, hoping to spark some sympathy or guilt. But Gary remains resolute. In fact, her efforts only seem to backfire when he casually mentions seeing a man in nothing but his underwear leaving her house the previous night. The comment catches Maddie off guard, leaving her scrambling for words as her credibility takes a hit. Flustered and without a solid rebuttal, she can only stand there as Gary finishes hooking up her car. Despite her increasingly desperate pleas, Gary is unfazed. He climbs into the tow truck and drives off, with Maddie left standing in the driveway, watching helplessly as her car, and her primary means of income, disappears down the street. It's a crushing moment, setting the tone for the challenges Maddie is about to face. Maddie, however, isn't one to give up so easily. Determined to take matters into her own hands, quite literally, she straps on her rollerblades and embarks on a desperate chase after Gary's tow truck. Her rollerblades screech against the pavement as she darts through streets and alleys, her singular focus on catching up with her car. Against all odds, she manages to pull off the seemingly impossible, catching up to the speeding truck as Gary stopped for gas and clambering into her car. Fueled by sheer determination, Maddie attempts to start the engine and make a dramatic getaway. Unfortunately, her plan is doomed from the start. In the heat of the moment, she overlooks one critical detail. The car is still firmly hooked to Gary's tow truck. Her attempt at escape turns into a chaotic spectacle as the car jerks and groans under the weight of the tow. Gary, observing the entire fiasco with an air of exasperated patience, takes control of the situation by raising the car off the ground. Maddie is left sitting inside, utterly defeated with her plan, and her car literally up in the air. The fallout from Maddie's reckless actions is swift and severe. She finds herself in legal trouble and ends up on probation, a consequence that only adds to her mounting list of problems. Her financial situation grows more dire as she receives a warning that her house is at risk of being seized due to unpaid property taxes. The reality of her situation weighs heavily on her, but Maddie tries to keep herself afloat by continuing her job at a local bar in Montauk. Yet even here, her stress is impossible to hide. During her shift, a customer approaches her before the bar officially opens, requesting a drink. Clearly on edge, Maddie bluntly informs him that they're closed. The customer, unwilling to take no for an answer, slyly offers her a bribe in hopes of being served early. Maddie, unimpressed and irritable, shuts him down just as firmly. Her boss, noticing her short temper, takes her aside to deliver a pointed warning. If she wants to keep her job, she'll need to fix her attitude and learn to manage her frustrations more professionally. Later, during her break, Maddie finds solace in the company of her best friend, Sarah, and Sarah's laid-back husband, Jim. They sit together, chatting over snacks and drinks, discussing Maddie's growing financial troubles and her fear of losing her home. Despite her usual tough demeanor, Maddie can't hide her anxiety about the precarious situation she's in. As the conversation shifts, Sarah, casually scrolling through CRAIGSLIST on her phone, stumbles upon something unusual. She bursts out laughing before showing Maddie an ad posted by a wealthy couple. The couple is offering a Buick Regal to anyone willing to date their introverted and socially awkward son, Percy, before he heads off to college. At first, Maddie is incredulous, finding the situation absurd. But as Sarah continues reading the details aloud, Maddie begins to consider it seriously. The offer, while strange, represents a potential solution to her immediate financial problems. The prospect of gaining a car could be the key to saving her home, which is the only stability she has left. Afterward, Maddie's desperation outweighs her skepticism. Realizing she has little to lose, she decides to take a chance on the bizarre arrangement. Despite the risks and the oddity of the situation, she convinces herself that securing the Buick is worth it. With her mind made up, Maddie embarks on a new, peculiar mission, determined to charm Percy and save her home at any cost. Maddie eventually finds herself pulling up to the grand, pristine home of Laird and Allison, Percy's wealthy and well-meaning parents. The couple welcomes her warmly, but there's little time for pleasantries before they launch into their carefully rehearsed pitch. They explain their predicament. Percy, their teenage son, is an introverted, socially awkward young man who spends most of his days immersed in video games. His lack of experience with socializing, especially with the opposite sex, worries them as he prepares to head off to college. They believe he desperately needs a confidence boost and hope a romantic relationship might help him open up to the world. Although their initial plan was to hire someone closer to Percy's age, Maddie, with her quick wit and confident demeanor, persuades them that she's the perfect person for the job. She assures them she knows how to handle someone like Percy and can guide him out of his shell. Reluctantly, Laird and Allison agree, but they lay down one unyielding condition. Under no circumstances can Percy discover that they're paying someone to date him. To keep things under wraps, they suggest Maddie meet Percy casually at the animal shelter where he volunteers, giving her the freedom to make the encounter seem natural. Determined to leave a memorable impression, Maddie carefully plans her first meeting with Percy. She arrives at the shelter dressed to impress, her confidence on full display. Her goal is clear: charm Percy and set the tone for their budding relationship. However, things don't go as smoothly as she'd envisioned. Percy, assuming she's there to adopt a dog, begins enthusiastically showing her around. He introduces her to Milo, a retired police dog with an oddly amusing backstory. Milo, Percy explains, developed a cocaine addiction during his time on the force, leading to his early retirement. Percy dives into a professional, detail-oriented adoption interview, fully engrossed in discussing Milo's quirks and history. Maddie, trying to shift the focus back to Percy, struggles to redirect the conversation. She awkwardly suggests they leave the shelter early and invites Percy to join her for a ride. Percy, caught off guard by her unexpected forwardness, hesitates but eventually agrees. As they climb into her van, Percy's unease grows. His suspicions are piqued when he notices an assortment of odd items, including knives and other strange tools, strewn around the vehicle. His wariness sets the stage for an awkward dynamic between the two, leaving Maddie scrambling to salvage her plan. The tension soon reaches a boiling point. Percy, overwhelmed by Maddie's intense approach and unsure of her intentions, panics. In a comical yet chaotic twist, he pulls out a can of pepper spray and sprays her before bolting out of the van. Maddie, coughing and momentarily blind, is left reeling from the unexpected attack. But Percy's panic quickly gives way to guilt, and he returns moments later, sheepishly offering her a bottle of water to help her recover. Maddie, still stinging from the pepper spray both literally and figuratively, takes a moment to compose herself before explaining her behavior. She awkwardly admits that she found him attractive, which, in hindsight, might have caused her to come on a bit too strong. To her surprise, Percy begins to relax. Her candid admission seems to put him at ease, and his wariness starts to fade. After a brief exchange, Percy suggests they try again, but this time, he proposes going on a proper date instead of continuing the chaotic ordeal they've just endured. Maddie, sensing an opportunity to reset their rocky start, agrees. For their first official outing, Maddie decided to take Percy to a bustling bar, hoping the lively atmosphere would help him relax and step out of his comfort zone. As they settled into their table, Maddie confidently ordered 2 Long Island iced teas, believing they'd set the right tone for the evening. Percy, however, was less than impressed. One sip was all it took for his face to contort into an expression of utter disgust. Clearly, this wasn't the drink for him. Maddie, amused by his reaction, teased him lightly, but Percy's discomfort lingered. The night took an unexpected turn when Travis, Maddie's ex-boyfriend, made an unwelcome appearance. With a smug grin and a newly adorned wedding ring, Travis made a point of flaunting his happily ever after. He directed a pointed jab at Maddie, warning Percy to be cautious around her, insinuating that she had a tendency to leave chaos in her wake. Percy, caught in the middle, looked visibly uneasy, but Maddie refused to let Travis ruin the evening. She brushed off his snide remarks with practiced ease, redirecting her focus to Percy and trying to salvage their date. Later, Maddie suggested they head to the beach for a more private, relaxed setting. Percy hesitated, expressing concern about swimming after hours, especially with no lifeguards on duty. He pointed out the risks, but Maddie's charm and persistence eventually won him over. The two waded into the water, splashing and laughing as Percy began to let his guard down. Just as the evening seemed to take a positive turn, a group of rowdy teens appeared, stumbling across the beach and spotting Maddie and Percy's belongings. With a mischievous laugh, the teens snatched their clothes, keys, and phones before bolting. Maddie, undeterred and fueled by sheer determination, stormed out of the water to confront the troublemakers. What followed was nothing short of a spectacle. Maddie, with no hesitation, confronted the trio head-on and managed to single-handedly overpower them, recovering everything they had stolen. When she returned to the water, Percy, having heard the commotion, asked about the screaming he'd overheard. Maddie, attempting to downplay the situation, casually claimed the teens had been apologizing. Percy, unconvinced, pressed further, accusing her of hiding something. His skepticism rubbed Maddie the wrong way, and their exchange quickly escalated into a heated argument. Frustrated, Maddie stormed out of the water, got dressed, and headed to her car, fully intending to leave Percy behind. But the drama didn't end there. Percy, still undressed and unwilling to part with his phone, climbed onto the hood of Maddie's car in protest. Refusing to back down, Maddie started driving, with Percy clinging precariously to the hood. The bizarre scene quickly attracted the attention of a nearby police officer, who began following them. Maddie, acutely aware of her probation status and terrified of losing her driver's license, panicked. She hit the accelerator, weaving through streets in a desperate bid to escape. The chase culminated in a daring move as Maddie crossed a train track just in time, narrowly evading the officer and leaving him on the other side. Once the chaos subsided, Maddie brought Percy back to her house, hoping to smooth things over. She attempted to rekindle the mood, trying to seduce him once more, but their interaction took an unexpected turn. Noticing a rash on Percy's back, Maddie asked about it. Percy hesitated before explaining that it was caused by anxiety, which he had struggled with for years. He opened up about being ridiculed by his classmates for being overly dependent on his parents, a humiliation that had deeply affected his confidence and social interactions. Maddie, touched by his vulnerability, gently applied lotion to ease his discomfort and shared a heartfelt story from her own life. The next morning, Maddie's own problems came rushing back when an old classmate, now a realtor, arrived unannounced at her doorstep. He enthusiastically pitched the idea of selling her house, highlighting its market potential. Maddie, who was still clinging to the hope of keeping her home, quickly shut him down. Frustrated by his persistence, she ordered him off her property, slamming the door in his face and reaffirming her determination to hold on to the one stable thing in her life. Later, Percy invited Maddie to spend the day with him, eager to share some lighthearted moments. The two ventured to a bustling arcade, where they threw themselves into the games with playful enthusiasm. From skee-ball to air hockey, they competed fiercely, laughing at their triumphs and failures. Percy even managed to win a plush toy for Maddie, which she jokingly called her trophy of victory. However, their fun was cut short when Maddie, in typical mischievous fashion, got into an argument with a kid over a game. The situation escalated until the arcade staff intervened, ultimately kicking them out. Despite the abrupt ending to their arcade adventure, Percy and Maddie didn't let it ruin the day. They found a quiet spot nearby where they could sit and talk. As the conversation flowed, Percy hesitated for a moment before shyly asking if he could kiss her. His earnestness caught Maddie off guard, but she was touched by his vulnerability. With a small smile, she said yes. Encouraged by the intimacy, Maddie opened up about her past. She shared stories about her family and the reasons she had never left Montauk, offering Percy a rare glimpse into her life beyond her bold and brash exterior. The honesty between them brought a sense of closeness neither had expected. Their day together ended with a visit to Percy's longtime nanny, Jody. Jody welcomed Maddie with surprising warmth, though her demeanor quickly shifted when she turned the conversation to Percy's well-being. It became clear that Jody was fiercely protective of him. She made it clear, without mincing words, that if Maddie hurt Percy in any way, there would be consequences. Maddie, unfazed by the warning, took it in stride. Later that evening, Maddie and Percy went out together for a special date. The outing was meant to be a stand-in for their missed proms, as neither of them had attended their own high school dances. Maddie, never one to shy away from a bold idea, encouraged Percy to take a chance and play the piano for the crowd. At first, Percy hesitated, nervous about putting himself in the spotlight, but with Maddie's persistent encouragement, he finally agreed. Percy's performance turned out to be nothing short of remarkable. As his fingers danced across the keys, the room fell silent, captivated by his talent. The applause that followed was thunderous, and Percy's face lit up with a mix of pride and disbelief. For the first time, he seemed to revel in the attention, his confidence visibly growing with each moment. Among the impressed onlookers was Natalie, one of Percy's classmates. After the performance, Natalie approached him, clearly taken with his skill. She greeted him warmly, complimenting his playing and revealing that she too would be attending Princeton in the fall. Her presence seemed to spark something in Percy, and when she extended an invitation to a party exclusively for Princeton-bound students, he didn't hesitate to accept. The prospect of mingling with his future peers excited him. However, the moment took a sour turn when Maddie and Percy began discussing the future. Percy, riding the high of the performance and Natalie's invitation, brought up possibilities beyond their current situation, but Maddie dismissed the idea, casually mentioning that she wasn't interested in long-distance relationships. Percy, hurt by her nonchalant attitude, accused her of not taking the future seriously. Frustrated, he declared that he would attend the party, brushing off Maddie's attempts to dissuade him. The pair arrived at the party in a limo, but when they got there, Percy insisted on going inside alone, leaving Maddie to wait outside. Unable to shake her concern, Maddie eventually decided to follow him in. The atmosphere inside was chaotic, filled with rowdy teenagers who immediately took note of Maddie's presence. Some mocked her for being too old to be there, while others pulled out their phones, attempting to record her. Maddie, undeterred by their taunts, pushed through the crowd, determined to find Percy. She eventually stumbled upon him in a bedroom with Natalie, but something was clearly wrong. Percy was barely conscious, and he weakly admitted to Maddie that he had taken a pill earlier. Panicking, Maddie sprang into action, trying various methods to get him to vomit. Before she could help him further, the parents of the host barged in and demanded she leave. Percy tried to defend Maddie but accidentally punched her in the throat during the commotion. The two left the party and climbed back into the limo. Percy, still groggy but emboldened, confessed that he was ready to take their relationship to the next level. However, just as things seemed to heat up, Percy confessed his love for her. Maddie, realizing he wasn't in the right state of mind, gently stopped him, insisting they wait for another time when he was sober. Meanwhile, Percy's parents began noticing subtle changes in their son's demeanor. He seemed more confident and relaxed, qualities they hadn't seen before. Percy expressed a newfound desire to get his driver's license, explaining that it would make visiting his girlfriend easier. His parents were thrilled with the progress, until he revealed that he no longer planned to attend Princeton, because his girlfriend didn't want a long-distance relationship. Alarmed, his parents immediately called Maddie, who was already wrestling with doubts about the arrangement. Maddie admitted to them that Percy was becoming emotionally attached, and that she wasn't sure continuing the job was a good idea. In response, Laird assured her that she would still receive the Buick if she convinced Percy to go to Princeton, even if she ended their relationship afterward. Unbeknownst to them, Percy had overheard this conversation while sitting in his parents' car. When the car speakers broadcast Maddie's confirmation of Laird's offer, Percy was devastated. Feeling betrayed, he decided to get even with Maddie. The next day, Percy invited her over for lunch with his parents. He acted unusually cheerful and even poured them both wine. Maddie, suspicious but unsure, played along. Soon after, Percy met up with his co-worker Crispin, and together they took the Buick out to a remote forest. In a dramatic act of revenge, they rammed the car into a tree, leaving it completely totaled. When Maddie arrived, Percy confronted her. He told her he knew everything about the deal with his parents and declared he never wanted to see her again. Heartbroken, Percy cut all contact with Maddie, ignoring her calls and messages in the days that followed. Later, Gary showed up at Maddie's house with the destroyed Buick in tow. He informed her that, since the car was in her name, it was now her responsibility. Maddie, though reluctant, realized she had no choice but to take ownership. She resumed her Uber driving job with the damaged car, eventually earning enough money to repair it and pay off her overdue taxes. Meanwhile, Percy confronted his parents about their meddling. He expressed deep disappointment, telling them they needed to stop controlling his life and let him make his own decisions. He firmly declared that he was an adult capable of handling his own future, leaving his parents to reflect on the consequences of their actions. After Maddie had finally saved enough money to pay off her overdue taxes, she decided to celebrate with her close friends, Sarah and Jim. The three gathered for drinks, reminiscing about old times. However, the cheerful mood shifted when Sarah and Jim revealed their plans to move to Florida for the sake of their unborn child. They explained how Florida would provide a better environment for their growing family, even though their hearts were still rooted in Montauk. Maddie, feeling blindsided by the news, grew upset. She couldn't imagine life in Montauk without them, and felt the creeping loneliness of being left behind. That evening, Maddie tried to distract herself by striking up a conversation with a guy at the bar. Things moved quickly, and she ended up back at his place. But when the moment came, Maddie couldn't shake the thoughts swirling in her mind. The changes Percy had brought into her life left a mark, making her question her choices and the life she'd been living. Frustrated, she didn't go with it, realizing she couldn't continue as she had before. The next day, Maddie made a bold decision. She contacted Doug, her former classmate turned realtor, and informed him she was ready to sell her house. Doug, sensing her determination, quickly found a buyer, but Maddie had a condition. She sold the house to Sarah and Jim, ensuring they could stay in Montauk and raise their child close to their friends. With her decision made, Maddie began preparing for a fresh start in California, eager to leave her past behind and begin anew. Despite her resolve, one loose end nagged at her: Percy. Maddie visited the animal shelter where he used to work, hoping to find him. However, Crispin, Percy's co-worker, informed her that Percy wasn't there and firmly refused to pass along any messages. Disheartened but undeterred, Maddie decided to confront Percy directly. She drove to his house, but his parents told her he wasn't home and was attending a Princeton mixer. Maddie, determined to make things right, headed straight to the event. When she found Percy at the mixer, he refused to engage with her, brushing off her attempts to talk. Frustrated, he got into his car, intending to drive away, but Maddie wasn't ready to give up. In a move reminiscent of Percy's earlier antics, Maddie jumped onto the hood of his car, forcing him to stop. Percy, unwilling to back down, began driving with her still on the hood. The two ended up at a beach, where things took a wild turn. Percy accidentally hit a barbecue grill and Maddie's dress caught fire. Panicking, Percy drove into the water to extinguish the flames, then scrambled to pull Maddie out. Percy, overwhelmed, began to cry as they embraced, finally addressing the unresolved tension between them. After clearing the air, Percy reassured Maddie that he planned to visit her after starting at Princeton. However, Maddie revealed that she had sold her house and was preparing to move to California. Percy, though surprised, was genuinely happy for her, recognizing her need for a fresh start. Maddie returned to Sarah and Jim with a surprise announcement. She revealed that she had sold the house to them, allowing them to stay in Montauk and raise their baby in the town they loved. Sarah was overwhelmed with gratitude, touched by Maddie's selflessness. The next day, Percy packed his bags and said goodbye to his parents. He firmly told them he was ready to take control of his life and left for Princeton with newfound confidence. As a final gesture, Maddie arrived to drive him to the university. Before hitting the road, she surprised Percy by adopting Milo, the quirky dog from the shelter where Percy had worked. Percy was thrilled to see Milo again, and the two shared a heartfelt moment before they loaded the car. Together they left Montauk, Percy heading toward a new chapter at Princeton, and Maddie embarking on her journey to California, ready to embrace the possibilities ahead. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.